G'day folks, Links here, and welcome back to GregTech New Horizons. So today we're going to take a bit of a look at CropsNH. Now, I actually did try to record this yesterday, where I was actually doing some of the early game, or what would be early game, crop stuff, statting and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I ended up having to give up on that recording for various reasons. This is going to be a little bit of a retrospect of my last sort of day with CropsNH, and also we'll get our first industrial farm set up. So I guess first of all, what is it? It's a GTNH dev rewrite or re-implementation of the crop system as part of an attempt to basically deprecate IC2. So I believe it is a backport of AgriCraft, but I could be wrong. I'm fairly sure that is what I've heard, though. And so far, I've been really pleased with it. I've really liked it. I've basically played about with some of the earlier game stuff where you basically do the kind of manual breeding and manual statting. I've also crafted the machines. These two, the breeder and the generator, are available starting from LV. And then the gene extractor and the synthesizer, which basically work the same way as their IC2 brethren, as far as I'm aware. I never crafted the IC2 variants. These are available from EV. I've just made everything IV. But yeah, so in terms of where you start, first of all, the quest book tab is amazing. It explains the mechanics really well. I've not really looked at all of these. I've not looked at all the individual crop quests, but yeah, they seem to be the earlier quests that explain the mechanics and the machines and so on seem to be really good. In terms of when you can start it, it appears that the gate is probably steel in terms of getting the tools. So the spade needs steel, the watering can needs steel. The plant lens needs a glass lens, which means LV. But you can find the spade and I don't know about the watering can. No, the watering can. Oh, no, you can. Yeah, no, that's loot bags. So the watering can, you can get from a loot bag, but otherwise you'll have to make it. But the spade, the spade you can get from loot bag too, and I think even plant lens, yeah. But the plant lens and the spade you can also find in roguelike dungeon loot. I think they're on the 3rd floor of roguelike dungeons. Or you can just find steel in loot chests and make the watering can and the spade yourself without having to get the brick blast furnace. So I guess it depends on if you don't do any looting at all. If you don't want to do any looting, any roguelike dungeon, etc., then LV is probably when you would want to start, because you'll then have all the tools, or all the initial tools. The reinforced spade is gated to MV because it needs the MV plate bender. And the difference between the reinforced spade and the normal spade is that it has a higher chance of seed drops than the normal spade. So when you get to 10 resistance on a crop, you are guaranteed 1 seed drop. So yeah, that's the tools. A note about the plant lens: it does not work the same way as the IC2 one. It is better. The IC2 one, to my knowledge, because I actually never crafted one, would not show you the stats. It would only show you what the crop was, whereas this will show you the full stats, which means the only real reason to get the electronic scan, the portable scanner for crops, is so you don't have to carry both of them around, because obviously you want the portable scanner for other things, scanning GregTech machines and so on. So basically, it's not like IC2 where you got an improved quality of life by going from the plant lens to the portable scanner, by having the portable scanner show you full stats. The plant lens is yeah, the plant lens is basically is just as good as the portable scanner. Now, I could be operating on an outdated device because that might be me watching sort of older GTNH videos. Because, like I said, I never crafted the crafted the IC2 plant lens. Because by the time I started doing crops seriously, I had the portable scanner. So yeah, but either way, plant lens in CropsNH, good. The other thing is the breeding mechanics. So the crossbreeding mechanic is basically the same as IC2 in terms of there are mutation pools. It's not as slow as IC2 from what I can tell, but that could just be sort of me. That could just be sort of anecdotal. I've not measured it scientifically, but it's not. It appears to be faster than IC2. And there is also deterministic breeding, where, for example, you can get sugarcane by just breeding carrots and potatoes. I don't know. I presume the mutation pools don't come into effect if you do this. So if you did basically carrots and potatoes and then a double crop stick, I presume you would either get one of the inputs back or get the sugarcane. I presume there'd be no chance for a mutation. But I've not done a deterministic breed yet. I do plan to do one, which is to breed the gold oreberry with the formium oreberry in order to get the, which I might, actually no, because I'm just going to do it in the breeding machine, to get the void metal oreberry. And then in terms of statting, the way statting works is you have a mature crop like this, and you just put a double crop stick next to it. And then you make sure there is some fertilizer on the parent crop. Because the way that the stat propagation works is the range is -2 to +4. But if you have so this is a 29-31-31. If you apply fertilizer to the parent crop, then the offspring, then the range becomes 0 to +4, which means you're guaranteed not to lose a stat in the offspring. So this will either be 29-31-31 or it will be higher. So statting does not require crossbreeding, because obviously that was one of the annoying things with IC2. If you were statting crops, then you would basically, if you were statting crops, then obviously there was a risk that you would, even with two parents, both identical, like two spruce bonsais, for example, there was still a risk you would get a mutation that would obviously slow you down. So that's basically statting. This will propagate in a bit. I don't quite know what the math is behind how long this takes. Because I know IC2, I believe, had the concept of like crop ticks or something like that. I'm not quite sure how CropsNH does it. So in terms of the next big improvement, weeds. So weeds, the weeds and diseases mechanic in CropsNH is good. Big step up from IC2. So I actually have 2 sick plants here. And the reason these are sick is because they are both behaving as weeds, because they both have a growth of over 24. Now, in IC2, but over here, you notice I have a 31-31-31, and this is fine. There's no grass randomly spouting, etc. This has a growth of 29 and a resistance of 31, but this isn't turning into a weed. So the reason for that is that the growth stat works a little different in CropsNH. If you have a growth of over 24, but a resistance that is lower than your growth, it will behave like a weed, which is what you're seeing here. So I have a growth of 28 and a resistance of 5. This one is a growth of 29 and a resistance of 8. Now, if this had a resistance of either 28 or higher, it would behave normally. And there would be no issues. Now, in terms of how weeds affect crops, gone are the days where you would have to worry about, like, let's say I was breeding the hemp and the sugar beet and I put a crop stick there, and let's say these were both perfect crops. In IC2 world, that would be essentially 2131-1 or something like that, or 2131-0 or whatever. Yeah, and I had a crop stick in the middle here. If I had to look away for some reason, either because of something in game or something out of game, and I forgot to get rid of this crop stick, it could sprout a weed and it would kill both of these crops. I've had that happen several times before I started using the OC crop bot, and it was very frustrating. It's even worse if you're using world accelerators, because world accelerators increase the growth speed of weeds. So it was even worse in that case. Now, in CropsNH, if this middle crop stick got a weed, it would just make these two plants sick. And when a plant is sick, it can't grow. It doesn't die or anything like that. There is, as far as I'm aware, there's no mechanic in CropsNH where you will outright lose a crop. Basically, your punishment for a crop field becoming infested with weeds is that crop field will just stop producing resources. So when I was doing my teardown, for example, when I was tearing all the crop stuff down, I had a field almost this size, which was entirely infected. And that entire field was just not producing. I can't even remember why it became sick. But yeah, it basically eventually became sick and spread throughout the entire field, which is still annoying, because you cure them using this plant cure, which is craftable in LV, and requires essentially, I think, enriched fertilizer cell, I think, is essentially like 5 fertilizer, and then obviously 1 fertilizer and 1 bone meal for the final craft, and a spray can. Although I'm assuming you just get the empty spray can back when it's done, but when you've used all 100 uses. But obviously going around and because I don't think Weedex, for example, gets rid of sickness, because there is still Weedex, but I think that's just to kill weeds. So if you got an infected field, it's still tedious because you still have to go plant cure them all. Oh yeah, here we go. We have our crop. It's an unknown seed, but now, as you can see, it's 31, 31, 31. Because there's, it's guaranteed to not lose a stat, and to be fair, it only needed a stat jump of 2 to become perfect. So this is now perfect. So yeah, I am conscious that I have been talking for quite a while, but yeah, I did just want to go through the sort of different things. So that's kind of the early game. Once you get to LV, you can start making machines, but I think the machines really start to become, or the machines become their most useful starting from HV. So the seed generator, for example, you get it in LV, and you can use it to replicate seeds. But if you want to replicate max stat seeds, then you need the HV one. So the crop breeder is the same. It can breed a lot of crops in LV. But if you want to breed max statted crops, then you need then you need to start from the HV crop breeder. The crop synthesizer and these become available in EV. And yeah, so I've just made everything IV. I've started gathering data orbs in this chest. I actually used the crop synthesizer to make a perfect black granite lily to supplement my fluorine supply. But yeah, so the machines are really good. It's just, yeah, obviously there has to be some kind of progression gating. And basically the progression gating works on the idea of the amount of fluid you can fit in the tank. So each stat point costs a certain amount of enriched fertilizer. A max crop will have 93 stat points. And that is basically which I think is 3,000 and something liters that you need. Which means you can't replicate a max stat crop until you get to HB. But the replication is pretty quick. In the IV one, it's under a second. It's 0.6 of a second, I think, in the IV one. So the HV one will probably be somewhat slow, but it's still faster than doing it manually. So yeah, I So for people who may be either upgrading to 2.9 and avoided crops because of IC2, or for people who may be basically for people who are playing 2.9 and have previously avoided crops because of IC2, I do encourage you to give CropsNH a go. I am actually going to look at swapping some of my bee stuff to crops, maybe, because crops feel a bit easier to manage. But we'll see. Like replicating crops is easier than replicating bees, at least until you get Gendustry. I think Gendustry makes it fairly straightforward. But I don't think I can do Gendustry yet. So I'm in LUV, but I don't think I'm far enough into LUV to be able to do Gendustry. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing. I've just been playing about with CropsNH, and it's been really fun. So I have a little field over here because I feel like if you're going to do crops, you need at least one field. Realistically, a lot of crops are going to end up in industrial farms, which I have. This is built, but I've not used it yet. This is what we're going to set up today. But basically, I've got hemp, which we need for the industrial farm. I've got the dayflower seeds, which are just cyan dye, and then I have a load of black granite lily. This is just temporary. These will all go away eventually. And it was just to feed a setup over here to electrolyze, to basically make fluorine, because I'd completely run out of fluorine. What I will do... Oh, you power failed. Why? Why did you power fail? Oh, you're not plugged in. Yeah, I've been doing some rewiring because I was using LUV superconductor everywhere, and while I can make a lot of it, it's very time-consuming. Even with 8 Vulcanite, it's still very time-consuming for me to make. 8 Vulcanite and 2 assembly lines, it's time-consuming for me to make. And I don't know what my indium supply is like either. So I've been replacing some of the LUV supercon with vanadium gallium cable. And then the actual spine is still just 8x LUV supercon. But anyway, back to our regular scheduled programming. That probably power failed while trying to make oxygen. I have in my level maintainer, I've added oxygen from sugar. But I am running out of my buffer of sugar beets. In fact, how much have I got? That's not where we look. Sugar beet. Oh, actually, I've still got quite a lot. 428,000. Okay, never mind. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is basically, or what I'm doing is I'm basically sending stuff from here into drawers with void upgrades, because I don't want this to clog up, and I can't be bothered managing it in AE. So this would be fine. Then I've just got a storage bus connected to it. So this will be for all the crops that don't need big scale. Not every crop is going to need to go into an industrial farm. This is for crops that I just need an amount of. This is just for crops I need an amount of, which will be things like dyes, I don't know, wheat. I actually can't think. I did have a load of miscellaneous crops. I had spruce bonsais, just a handful of spruce bonsais for things that involved using for crafting recipes that involved wood. But what I want to do today is I want to get the industrial farm set up. So the industrial farm, it has a few interesting mechanics. It has a scaling power mechanic similar to the industrial apiary, but the base power draw is determined by the seed bed tier. So I'm making IV. I could make LUV, but the way that the upgrade mechanic works, so these wooden frames can be replaced with upgrade modules. And if we look in the quest book, there are a few. There's basically environmental upgrades to replicate biomes. That's what it is. The environmental enhancement unit is for replicating specific biomes. Fertilization unit basically as if you have this in and feed fertilizer into the multi-block, then it will give it a 50% growth bonus and a 50% drop bonus, I believe. And yeah, so basically there are other upgrades. Growth acceleration and overclock growth acceleration are exactly what they sound like. They boost growth. Now, the thing is though, the upgrade tier has to match the tier of seedbed. And the upgrades themselves, like if I look at this one, for example, it's not incredibly expensive. Like, you know, that's pretty cheap. But it costs components from its tier, and I just can't make a lot of LUV components right now. At least not in any like fast fashion. The hover mode's broken again. It won't let me turn it off. So yeah, basically that is basically the reason I've stuck with IV. It also sets the base power draw. So the base power draw of this will be an IV amp. Not a full amp, but like the normal like recipe amp, which is like what, 7,800 and something EU or whatever it is. But the way the scaling works is if you put upgrades on, then like if I put an environmental upgrade on to change the biome, it increases the power usage by 50%. And so, yeah, if I had 4 upgrades on here, yeah, they'd all potentially be increasing power usage. This doesn't support multi-amp hatches, though, unless you put a overclocked growth accelerator on it. And these are only available starting from ZPM, and these do look quite expensive. So yeah, I think the idea is so I think the idea will basically be that I kind of avoid upgrading it for now. It's getting very annoying that I can't turn hover mode off. Yeah, the idea will be is that I kind of avoid upgrading it for now. So I think my first one is going to be for sugar beet, because I need to get sugar beet back up and running for oxygen. Now, I don't know if I just want to make this entirely sugar beet. The seedbed tier determines the base power draw. It also determines a few other things. So if we look at, can I see it in here? Yeah, here we go. So it determines the base power draw, but it also determines how many seeds you can fit in it. Even the MV one can fit 225 seeds. It also determines the consumption of inputs, and it also determines the percentage increase you get of drops. Now, the industrial farm the input cost does not scale with the number of seeds, so you have no reason to not just stuff this full of seeds. It will use the same amount of power regardless of the number of seeds. It will use the same amount of power and fertilizer regardless of the number of seeds you put in it. So what I'm going to do, because I've just realized I forgot to hook this up with fertilizer. I've also not hooked it up to AE. So I'm thinking what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to build out a little AE2 subnet, because these are... Ideally, I'd want to level emit these. I'd probably level emit these farms, maybe. But yeah, basically, I need to I've just realized I need to finish up a bit of plumbing, because I've only plumbed up power. I kind of need to plumb up AE. And I also need to get fertilizer into it as well. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a little subnet. I might just build it like here somewhere. And then, build the, put the controller and the drives and whatnot here. And then, we'll get this set up and we'll get it running and see what it looks like, because I have not touched this at all. So I will see you guys in a bit. Right, and we're back. So I've set up a little subnet for this sort of demonstration and initial setup, which is using sugar beet. So what I actually need to make sure I can still see it from mainnet. Yep, I can still see it from mainnet. So I've got, the idea is that I will have a bunch of partitioned cells in here. So I've got room for 30 cells right now. I don't know how many I'm actually going to need. And I can subdivide them using the, equal distribution cards. But for now, the way I've got this set up is I have a storage bus on the mainnet pointing into the subnet, which is set to extract only, so everything on this subnet will be visible to mainnet. I have a storage bus on the subnet pointing into the mainnet. It is set to bidirectional, but it's set to strict extraction mode. So it will only see stuff from the mainnet that is in this filter, and it can only send stuff to the mainnet that is in this filter, which for the moment is just purified Neverstar ore. So if we look at the terminal here, you can see I can't see any items from mainnet. The sugar beet is in that cell, and I can see the only liquid I can see from mainnet is enriched fertilizer, because I've done the same thing for the fluid storage bus. So the fluid storage bus is set to bidirectional, but the extraction mode is set to strict. So it can only see items from the mainnet that are in these filters, which is just enriched fertilizer. I don't think this subnet will produce fluids, but there's no harm in setting it to bidirectional with a filter. Anyway, I don't know if that extraction mode stuff is actually new to 2.9 or not. I actually can't remember if it was in 2.8, but yeah, it's quite handy to be able to have a bidirectional storage bus, but basically filter it in both directions by doing that, by changing that to. So if you set that to loose, then this basically just acts as an input filter, and the network will be able to see everything. So the subnet will be able to see all the items in mainnet, and then this just acts purely as an input filter. But if you set it to that, then these filter slots are used in both directions. So yeah, that's really handy. So I have the industrial farm set up. It's powered. I'm pumping enriched fertilizer into it. This is ideally what you want to do. Enriched fertilizer is 10 times more efficient than the regular fertilizer. So even though it costs, I think it's like 5 regular fertilizer per bucket of enriched fertilizer, you get 10 times more, let's call it fertilization out of it. As long as you don't put a fertilization unit on here. If you put a fertilization unit upgrade on here, then you lose that 10x efficiency bonus. And instead you get in exchange for getting a 50% bonus to both growth and drop rate. But we're not doing any upgrades for now. So if I turn this on, so at the moment this is doing nothing. It is currently in input mode. So what we can do, we don't actually need subsoil. We don't actually need subsoil blocks because sugar beet doesn't need them. We just need the seeds. So the way this works is I have 65 or 64 sugar beet seeds in here. Now, some seeds you can replicate, but I was actually wondering why this wasn't working, and it's because I was being dumb and I didn't check the recipe. Some seeds you can replicate by just shoving them in here. Other seeds require some other product. And in order to replicate sugar beet seeds, you actually need sugar. So we just shove that in there. And we'll get we'll put 2 stacks into the industrial farm and see what happens. But I think ideally I'm just going to put all... I don't know. So what will happen is I will probably have I'll probably have a chest or something. I'll explain in a minute once I've got my seeds and I've put them in. But basically, the industrial farm looks very similar to the extreme industrial greenhouse, where it starts off in input mode, and what happens is you put seeds in. It won't let me put them in. I have to put them in the input bus. So you put them in the input bus, and now we have 64 sugar beets. Oh, actually, maybe you can't mix seeds. Can you? So if I just grab like a black granite, or if I grab another seed, I wonder if you can actually... I don't think you can mix seeds, so maybe this won't actually be a concern. If we just grab put a goldfish seed in there. So will it actually let me mix seeds? No, you can't mix seeds. Okay. So that's fine then, because one concern I had was basically how to kind of manage mixing seed types, but you can't mix seed types. So this is going to have 700 odd sugar beet in it. But yeah, basically we put that in there. Now, the way you get these seeds out is you switch the mode to output mode. Now, if I switch it to output mode, it actually has output them somewhere. I don't know where, though. I don't know where it could have output them. Unless it's output them into mainnet. Oh, it's a... No. Oh, they'll be stuck in the hatch. So that is the... Yeah, they're there. So the way you get the seeds back out is you switch it to output mode, and it outputs them into an output bus. I guess now that because one of the concerns I had was, so I need to put like a unpartitioned cell, just so I can get the, I just need to put an unpartitioned cell so I can get the seeds back. So if we just grab you, and we'll just put you in there. I can't put you in there for some reason. What the? Oh no, I made a pattern. Ah, that's me. That's me being dumb. All right, well you can go in there. I do that quite often, where I switch to the pattern terminal instead of the other one. Right, there we go. So we got our seeds back. Let's pull that cell back out. Yeah. So basically, what happens is they go into to get the seeds back out. You switch the mode to output, and then you run the machine, and they get put into the output. They get put into an output bus. Now, if you can only have one seed type, then that's actually fine, because what I can do is I have energy hatch, so I might just put the output bus there. What I can do is just put a output bus on here, and because filtered output buses get... Oh, I didn't save a seed. Because filtered output buses get prioritized first, you can just put a filtered output bus on. And the reason I was concerned about whether or not it supported multiple seeds was... Oh, where did they go? Did they end up... Output? Oh, yeah, they ended up in there. Yeah, so basically you can just do that, for example. But that might not actually be necessary depending on where you put the output bus that you actually intend, like the ME output bus. Because they... multi-blocks have a particular sort of like search pattern when they're finding buses on the structure. But yeah, if I filter this now, what will happen is I switch back to input mode. I put that in there, and we get that back. And then what I can do is, if I switch to output mode, I get the seeds back. So that's fine. So we'll put those back in. And then what we want to do now is we want to switch to farm mode. And there we go. So it's a 5-second cycle. And it's going to produce us 38 sugar beet every 5 seconds, I guess. Oh no, 39. Yeah, so, and this will actually scale with, this can scale up to 700 seeds. We can put up to 700 sugar beets in here. And what will be happening is these will be going into here, in theory. Yep, there we go. So that actually kind of means I don't need to level limit them either, because I was wondering if I needed to level limit these, i.e. if they could produce multiple seeds, but they can't. I'll just let them fill up. Because these cells... actually, this does... Oh, no, these don't have void... This doesn't have a void overflow on it. So, yeah, I'll just let it fill up. Because what'll happen is the cache on this hatch will fill up when the cell gets full, and then the machine will stop. But, yeah, so this is consuming fertilizer. I should be able to see that if I turn the pump... Oh, don't do that. Just do that, I guess. So yeah, if I basically turn the pump off, I should be able to see it using... Oh, actually, it could still be running. Just take it out of there. There we go. So what I should see is I should see it consume some fertilizer, I guess. I would assume so. Because it is... Yeah, it's in. It's... Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it actually... So it is... Yeah, it's pretty efficient with the fertilizer, with the enriched fertilizer. So if we just turn you back on, or we put you back in, and yeah, that's basically now going to produce me 38 sugar beet every 5 seconds forever. I have no upgrades on it. Obviously, I can put upgrades on it. I need to see kind of how that works. I could make one, actually, if we look at... So what upgrades are there? I probably don't want the... I could probably just get the growth acceleration unit. So what's the advanced harvesting unit? Increases the production rate. Only allow 1 per industrial farm. It increases the number of drops by 20%, the power usage by 50%. So... Yeah, okay. So if I do... So the IV... Yeah, okay. So I could make one of those. I don't want to make the fertilization unit right now, I don't think. The growth acceleration unit is... Yeah, I mean, this increases... This basically over doubles power usage. Or just over doubles power usage, but it does double growth. So I think what we'll do is... Let's just see if we can make one of these. Looks like we can, because they're fairly... Yeah, they're fairly straightforward. My daily build appears to be somewhat broken at the moment. I can't just control-click. Like, if I do that, then I click it multiple times, and then I get that. So I think the NEI integration in the current daily is a bit broken, unfortunately. But if I set that going... And then I'll need 2 IV circuits. IV circuit is incredibly inconvenient, though, that doesn't work. That is actually quite inconvenient. But that should be it. So, and then what I can do is replace... Now, these are... When things are grown in the industrial farm, they are assumed to have sky access. They are assumed to be fertilized if you're passing fertilizer in. And they also get... What is it? The... Yeah, here we go. So, they're assumed to have sky access. They're assumed to have 200 water. And they're assumed to have 200 fertilizer if you're fertilizing. And if you want to do biome changing, you do it under the block. You do it where the controller is. So if you wanted to use shifting seasons to set the biome instead of putting a specific environmental upgrade in, because environmental upgrades do cost power, do increase power cost. And they take up an upgrade slot as well here. But basically if I turn you off, I think the base cycle time is always 5 seconds. I don't think it actually matters what... So is that... Yeah, it's formed. I can't right-click it or anything, so I guess I just turn it on. Yeah, there we go. I'm getting double now. And it ran out of power. Why did it run out of... How much power was it using? It's using 17,000. Oh, that's more than 2 amps of IV. Yeah, okay. I'll have to figure out power in a bit. I may have to put an LUV and I may have to upgrade this to LUV class and put an LUV energy hatch on. But I don't think I actually really need that for now. Just even if it's only 35 odd even if it's only like 34 every second or whatever. But yeah, if it was 100% power increase, it would have been fine. But because it's 125% power increase, it will be over 2 amps of IV. Because 2 amps of IV would be 16,384. But yeah, that's the industrial farm. Now, the next one I'm going to build is probably going to be Star Ward, because I need to sort out Never Stars. And as you can see here, I've got a bit of a sort of a layout. you can't put hatches on the frame, so you can't put hatches like here or here or here. You can only put hatches on hatches, and buses can basically only go on these 9 blocks on this side and these 8 blocks on this side, because obviously there's the controller. So wall sharing means, so on one side it means you don't have to sort of worry about positioning the energy hatch to avoid it being wall shared, but on the other side it does mean you sort of can't share things like output buses and so on. But what I'm going to do is I can fit 5 more here with this layout, and then I am not actually going to put a second row, because the way that these work is if I want to upgrade the tier of this, it will actually get 1 longer. So what I've done is I've basically, at the moment it is 6 long. So what I'm going to do is basically take it to what would be here, I guess. Yeah, so basically take it maximum length to this, which I think would be like a U. No, it wouldn't be UV, I don't think. It'd be, I can't remember what tier it would be. But yeah, basically, actually, this is somewhat easy to figure out. Seed, if we look at seed bed, it's basically, the width is basically, or the length is basically the tier number. So this is 6 wide, but the seed bed is tier 4, so it's got, 1, 2, 3, 4 seed beds. So if I wanted to go up to, I think from here to the front is 12, if I've counted right. So that means I could put in a tier, that means I could take it up to tier 10, which would be UIV. So I could make it, I could fit, like, I could turn this row into UIV crop things, which, yeah, I'm not even sure if I'll still be using industrial farms, assuming I even make it to UIV. So what I'm going to do is leave a gap in the middle, basically probably, like at either side sort of thing. So there'd be like, this one would go to the furthest there, and then that one. Yeah, and then this row, and then I'd have another row here. And then if I need more, I'll just stack them vertically. One thing I'm unsure about is whether or not you can flip them upside down and share the upgrades, like you can with, some other GT multi-blocks, like I did it in nitrobenzene for the electrolyzers. I flipped them upside down. They're flipped upside down so they can share the top. I don't know if you can do that with the industrial farm, whether it will let you flip it upside down and share the top. But yeah, that's kind of my, I guess, introduction to CropsNH. I'm quite happy with it. I was kind of expecting the industrial farm to be a bit, at IV, I was kind of expecting to get more out of it, but obviously I've only put 128 seeds in. I guess if I put all 700 in, I'll get quite a bit more. So what do we get? We get about 38, if we call it 38 for 128. So I would assume the kind of average... So I'd assume the kind of average is we'd probably get about maybe 228 or something per 5 seconds if I fill it with 700 seeds. As it stands right now, this is pretty much wasting power because I've not filled it to capacity, so I will fill it up when I'm done, off camera. And I will look at the upgrades and figure out how to power it, but I suspect powering it is because you can't put multi-amp hatches on it unless you put the overclocked, unless you put this thing on, the overclock growth accelerator, but you can't make these till ZPM. And this is the only way that you can, put multi-amp energy hatches on. And it also allows overclock as well. So I guess, it allows overclocking as well. I mean, I guess the other way is I would just put 2 regular IV energy hatches on. I'd have to figure out how I'd power those. Or, whereabouts I'd put them. I'd probably have to put them on this side. But yeah, that would be the what I would probably end up having to do is put 2 regular IV energy hatches on. But anyway, I think this has been sort of fairly long, again. And unfortunately, I think the next few videos are probably going to be longer than I would like. The reason being is that I was looking at the quest book and I was pondering just pushing forward into Netherite line. But I actually think I want to push into blood magic and get meteors, and also push into magic more generally. And get basic magic infrastructure up. And yeah, just like CropsNH, this is a lot of stuff that I've never touched before. But I do still want to catch it. So the next videos are unfortunately probably going to be a bit longer. Greg Tech progression, even though I've never made it past LUV, is something that I'm at least a bit more familiar with. But anyway, I'm going to disappear now. I hope you've all enjoyed the video, and hope it's given you all a bit of a look into CropsNH through the sort of various stages. And yeah, I hope everyone has a good day, and I will see you all later.